Amid the raging storm, a horse lay battered and abandoned, her breath shallow, her body broken. A man found her, a flicker of life still in her eyes, and saved her. Weeks passed, and just when all hope seemed lost, she rose, scarred but unbroken. That first gallop left everyone stunned. The rain fell relentlessly, turning the land into a muddy, treacherous expanse. Caleb Reed hunched against the biting wind, securing the last of his livestock in the barn. At 58, his body ached with every movement, the damp weather seeping into his joints. But decades of farming had taught him one thing: never leave a job unfinished. Then he heard it, a sound that didn't belong to the storm. A desperate, pain-filled whinny rose above the howling wind. "Fiona," he called, pushing the barn door open against the gusts. "Bring me the flashlight and the emergency kit." Moments later, his wife appeared, her face etched with worry. "Caleb, you can't go out there. The creek's already flooding." "Something's hurt out there," he said firmly, testing the flashlight's beam. "I can't just leave it." Following the eerie cry, he trudged through the storm, the flashlight's beam cutting through the rain. At the creek's edge, his breath caught. A horse, majestic even in its misery, lay half submerged in the rising waters. Its once beautiful chestnut coat was caked in blood and mud, a deep gash running along its flank. One leg was grotesquely twisted. "Dear God," Caleb whispered, stepping closer. The horse's eyes, wide with terror, locked onto him. It struggled to rise but collapsed again, letting out a sound that pierced through the storm. Caleb's pulse quickened. He had seconds to act. The water was rising, threatening to pull the injured animal under. But moving her in this state could kill them both. "Easy, girl," he murmured, inching closer. "I'm not going to hurt you." Something shifted in her eyes, fear softened, and a flicker of trust emerged. Later, Caleb would remember this moment as the turning point. Kneeling in the freezing water, he ran his hands over her trembling body, assessing the damage. Female, around 6 years old. Her injuries were severe but not yet fatal. The real enemy was time. "Fiona," he shouted. "Call Doc Hayes. Get Grant from next door, we're going to need help." Within an hour, Grant and his sons arrived with their tractor, and Doc Hayes braved the storm with his medical supplies. Together, they worked under the barn's flickering lantern light to stabilize the horse and move her to safety. Doc's face was grim as he examined the wound. "She's been shot," he said. "Probably a hunting accident. Bullet might still be in there. Can you save her?" Caleb asked, though he already knew his answer. He wouldn't let her go. Doc held his gaze. "I'll try. But even if she survives tonight, she'll need weeks of care. That leg, she may never walk right again." Caleb nodded, his jaw set. "Then we'll take it one day at a time." As the others filed into the house to wait out the storm, Caleb stayed in the barn. He spread fresh blankets over the horse and whispered, "We'll call you Phoenix." Her matted coat glinted faintly in the lantern light, the deep red beneath the grime glowing like dying coals. Phoenix's labored breath slowed as her eyes followed Caleb's every move. "You're safe now," he said gently. "Whatever happened, it's over. Just stay with us." Outside, the storm raged on. But within the barn, hope began to stir. By dawn, the sky had cleared, and Phoenix lay resting, alive and surrounded by warmth, the first light of morning a promise of the fight ahead. Caleb hadn't slept at all, his eyes fixed on the barn window where dawn began to creep in, casting a soft golden light over Phoenix's still form. She had barely survived the night. But she had survived. Doc Hayes returned, his face lined with exhaustion, carrying his medical kit. "We've got to operate now," he said firmly, unpacking his tools. "The bullet needs to come out and those wounds have to be treated properly." The hours that followed were a grueling blend of grit and determination. Fiona kept the supplies coming, hot water, clean towels, while Grant's boys steadied Phoenix through the critical moments. "There's more here than meets the eye," Doc Hayes muttered as he worked. He gestured toward her legs, marred with old scars. "See the muscle structure? She was trained for racing. But something went wrong. These aren't from accidents. Someone's abused her." Caleb's jaw tightened. In the close-knit farming community of Millbrook Valley, cruelty like this was rare, but not unheard of. Trainers pushing horses to their limit for a quick buck. "The bullet wound is fresh," the vet continued, "but these scars, she's been through hell for at least a year." Phoenix stirred weakly as if she understood the conversation. Caleb leaned in, stroking her neck gently. "That's all behind you now," he whispered. "I promise." By midday the operation was over. The bullet was gone, the wounds stitched, and her broken leg set. Doc Hayes wiped his forehead, his voice heavy with the weight of the unknown. I've done everything I can. The rest is up to her. And you'll need round-the-clock care for 2 weeks minimum? Fiona, ever steady, appeared with coffee and sandwiches. We'll manage, she said with quiet resolve, her hand on Caleb's shoulder. We always do. The closure of the old stables and the introduction of new local laws to protect horses like Phoenix signaled a shift in the community's mindset. One evening, as Caleb watched Phoenix graze under the fading light, Liam stood beside him. It's strange how things work, Liam mused. Sometimes one story is all it takes to open people's eyes. The impact of Phoenix's survival was already making waves, and Caleb could feel the change around him. 3 months later, Caleb received the official confirmation of his ownership of Phoenix, but in his heart he had known the truth long before. Phoenix had chosen her home the night she defied death in that relentless storm. To celebrate, the town organized a small festival. Children adorned Phoenix's paddock with colorful ribbons, and local farmers brought hay and treats. The county paper sent a photographer to capture the day, immortalizing the moment. Phoenix, wearing a bright halter, walked proudly among her admirers. She's smiling, Fiona whispered, watching Phoenix nuzzle the hands of delighted children. I never knew horses could smile until I met her. That evening, as the barn settled into quiet, the first snow of winter blanketed the valley. Caleb sat in his usual spot, lost in thought. Phoenix approached, her scarred legs now strong and steady. He rested a hand on her neck and smiled. We did it, girl, he whispered. We showed them what's possible when you don't give up. Unbeknownst to him, the sanctuary was already evolving into something greater than he had imagined. News of Phoenix's recovery had spread beyond their small town, drawing interest from unexpected places. One snowy morning, Dr. Tessa Clark, a veterinary rehabilitation specialist from the state university, arrived. Watching Phoenix move with graceful determination, she turned to Caleb. Mr. Reed, she said, admiration in her voice, what you've done here is remarkable. Have you ever thought about expanding this into something bigger? Her proposal was ambitious. The university wanted to establish a satellite rehabilitation center for injured horses, using Caleb's farm as its foundation. They offered funding, expertise, and resources while preserving the compassionate approach that had been key to Phoenix's recovery. It's not just about physical rehabilitation, Dr. Clark explained. It's the emotional healing, the way the community has come together. That's what makes this place special. Imagine how many more horses we could help. That evening, Fiona found Caleb leaning against Phoenix's stall, deep in thought. You're considering it, aren't you? She asked softly. He nodded, his gaze fixed on Phoenix as she dozed peacefully. I keep thinking about that storm, he murmured. What if no one had found her? How many others are out there waiting for someone to hear them? Opening the farm to such a project would bring significant changes, but when they presented the idea at a town hall meeting, the response was overwhelming. My boys can help with construction, Grant offered. And you can use that spare pasture by my land for recovering horses? Tessa from the feed store chimed in. I'll coordinate special feed orders. My daughter's in veterinary school, she'd love to intern here. Even Dale Whitaker, once skeptical of Phoenix's survival, spoke up. Those old stables my grandfather left by the creek, they're yours if you need them. As winter melted into spring, the project, now named Phoenix's Hope, began to take shape. University architects designed therapeutic facilities while local contractors donated time and materials. The community held fundraisers, turning Caleb's modest farm into something extraordinary. At the heart of it all was Phoenix, whose quiet resilience continued to inspire. Her impact became clear when the first new arrival, a terrified young stallion injured in a transport accident, came to the sanctuary. Defensive and distrusting, he shied away from human contact. But to everyone's amazement, Phoenix approached his paddock fence, nickering softly. Over the next few days, her calm presence soothed him. She stood with him for hours as if showing him that healing was possible. She remembers, Liam said, watching the gentle interaction. She knows what it's like to be where he is, and she's showing him the way out. As spring blossomed, more horses arrived, each carrying scars of their own. They thrived under the unique blend of expert care and community love that had once saved Phoenix. University students came to study the sanctuary's methods, and one student wrote in her thesis, "This isn't just rehabilitation, it's the restoration of hope for horses and humans alike." Local schools brought children to learn compassion through horse care. Veterans found solace in working with the animals, discovering a quiet peace in their presence. The sanctuary's influence stretched beyond its fences, touching lives in ways Caleb had never anticipated. 1 year after Phoenix's rescue, Caleb stood in the heart of the sanctuary, watching horses roam freely, volunteers working side by side, and laughter filling the air. What had started as a single act of kindness had grown into something much greater, a refuge for those in need. The barn had transformed into a state-of-the-art facility, yet it never lost its warmth. Rolling hills stretched beyond, dotted with paddocks where horses in recovery found peace. Phoenix, now fully healed save for a slight limp that had become a part of her character, stood beside Caleb. No longer just a survivor, she had become a teacher, showing humans and horses alike the strength found in resilience and trust. "You know, girl," Caleb murmured, scratching behind her ears, "sometimes the greatest miracles start with the smallest acts of kindness." As if she understood, Phoenix pressed her head against his shoulder, her eyes gleaming with the same indomitable spirit that had first captivated him on that stormy night. Around them, the sanctuary buzzed with life. Veterinarians attended to horses, volunteers tended the paddocks, and children learned the value of compassion. 5 years had passed since that fateful storm, and Phoenix's journey had led to something far beyond what anyone had imagined. Now spanning 50 acres, the sanctuary featured advanced rehabilitation facilities, a veterinary clinic, and educational programs. Despite its growth, it retained the personal touch that had made it extraordinary. On a warm summer morning, Caleb sat under the shade of a towering oak, his favorite spot overlooking the paddocks. "Mr. Reed," called Zoe, a spirited 10-year-old who had been visiting the sanctuary since kindergarten. She dashed up the path, a group of volunteers trailing behind her. "Can you tell us the story again? About the night you found Phoenix?" Hearing her name, Phoenix perked up, ambling toward the fence as Zoe reached out a hand to greet her. Caleb smiled. "It was one of those nights when any sensible person would have stayed inside," he began. As he shared the tale, he saw the wonder in the children's eyes. This wasn't just a story about a horse's rescue, it was a lesson in hope, determination, and the power of kindness. Over the years, Phoenix's story had led to the rescue of more than 200 horses, but her impact extended beyond the animals. Hunter, a troubled teenager, had discovered purpose at the sanctuary and was now studying veterinary medicine. Maria, a veteran battling PTSD, had found healing through therapeutic riding and now led the very sessions that had saved her. The sanctuary's innovative approach had gained national attention, setting a new standard in equine rehabilitation. Stronger protection laws were in place, and stables across the county had improved their standards of care. "The thing about Phoenix," Caleb said as he finished the story, "is that she didn't just survive. She taught us all how to be better." At that moment, Phoenix lifted her head, letting out a soft nicker. A newly rescued mare, still hesitant in her surroundings, answered. Watching their exchange, Caleb felt the same awe he had felt years ago. Phoenix had an unspoken way of reaching others, both horses and humans alike. "You know," Fiona said, handing Caleb a glass of lemonade, "I never thought we'd come this far." "Neither did I," Caleb replied, watching Zoe feed Phoenix an apple. "But sometimes the best dreams are the ones we never knew we had." As the sun set, casting golden light over the sanctuary, Caleb made his rounds, greeting each horse. They all shared one unifying truth: they had been given a second chance. In her paddock, Phoenix stood watchful, overseeing the place she had unknowingly built. Once discarded, she had become something far greater, an enduring symbol of resilience. "You didn't just survive that storm," Caleb murmured, resting a hand on the gate. "You showed us all how to weather our own."